So hi guys and welcome to a new and very special video on Sonwell's life. Now as you can tell, I am not actually alone and New Japan fan, you'll be very familiar with him, but I'm gonna let him introduce himself.
Hi everyone, this is Michael Richards here, and I'm from the NZ Dojo and currently appearing on New Japan Tamashi.
So obviously we all know Michael Richards. He has been on the New Japan Lions Roar and New Japan Tamashi. So we're obviously going to talk about that. But I guess something that I speak about and I love hearing about is how you got into wrestling, because I feel like New Zealand and Australia is similar to the UK, is that you don't have the big like WWE and things. How did you first get into wrestling in general?
So I first got introduced to wrestling from because my dad, he had a PS2, and on the PS2 there was one of the old SmackDown games, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like when I first introduced to it. Just like seeing guys like The Rock, Triple H, Kane, and all those guys. And then I had a friend from primary school who was religious with wrestling. Like he watched it all the time. And he came over to my house one night and we just watched it. And ever since then, I've been like hooked. So since 10 years old, I've been a fan.
I think that's an amazing thing is that you can find it in the, like, I know I didn't get into wrestling until much later, but I remember people at school talking about it. But I think
Yeah.
that's obviously the broad one. But New Japan itself, how did you come across that? Because I feel like for a lot of wrestling fans, they might not know, especially at a young age, about Japanese wrestling. And obviously, it's such a
Yeah.
core of our lives. And for you, how was that first introduced to you?
So this takes me back to 2014. I was training with a company called IPW in New Zealand, and we trained every Wednesday. And during one of the sessions, this big 6'4" guy walks into the room, Bad Luck Fale, and he kind of introduced himself to me. I introduced myself to him, but I had no idea who he was. I thought he was just like a regular guy. And then I got talking to him more, and then he told me that he wrestles for New Japan, and I didn't really like. I wasn't really excited or anything because I had no idea what it was. But then I just researched, and turns out at the time he was like one of the top guys in New Japan. I think he was uh I think a few weeks away from winning the IC title from Shinsuke Nakamura. So yeah, that Fale is the guy who introduced me to New Japan. Yeah.
I mean, seeing Farley for the first time, what was it like? Because I could, like, I've never met him in person, but I can imagine with his presence, it's probably quite daunting.
It wasn't like because I didn't know who he was. Like I was like, oh, it's just a massive looking dude. But now that he's like my trainer and everything, my coach, there's a lot of respect there. I used to be intimidated him just a little bit, but over the years as we've gotten closer, like he's just a real good friend to me.
Now, we obviously saw your time as a young lion, and obviously some people sort of separate the New Zealand dojo from the Noge dojo, similar to the LA dojo. But I guess
Mm-hmm.
with Farley running it, and obviously as someone who he did the young lion system in Japan himself, what was it like going through that? Like we saw on the documentary on New Japan World how grueling it is. What is the reality of it? Because we just see it from the screens, and I can imagine it's so much different, but also probably much more similar to maybe the Noge Dojo system than maybe the LA Dojo.
I'm not too sure how the LA dojo system is run, but from stories I've heard from and Clark and Alex, like it's really, really intense. They're all intense in their own unique type of way. Like when I trained in Japan for 3 months, like when I was with guys like Umura, Suji, Narita, Shota, the training itself was quite easy, quite good, but it was more of the culture and everything outside of the training, like making the chanko, doing the senpai's laundry. That was the hardest thing for me because I've never done that before. But with the NZ dojo, what you saw on Lions Raw is exactly how it is, how it goes. So like days we're doing 1,000 squats every single day. that intense training. But the only difference is that they don't have to do like laundry for senior senpais. So you do your training from 9 till 12, and then afterwards it's pretty much free time. You can do whatever you want. But the guys who want it more, who want to get to Japan, they do extra training at night. So they sometimes train 5, 6 hours a day.
And I guess like it's one thing being in the dojo system, which is hard enough. But what was it like having the cameras following you? Because I almost feel like when I was watching it, I was willing everyone to do so well. And it almost felt like it was like an added pressure because you're doing what you normally do, but the cameras are there following you. Did you feel any difference with that? Did that impact you in any way?
Yeah, like especially the scene where we had to do like I think it was like what close to 2,000 squats. It was like one of the third episodes I think it was. I knew the cameras were there and I knew I had to like step it up a bit more. So that's why I was like screaming and shouting at all the guys. Which I do from time to time. I've gotten a bit nicer recently. But yeah, like when you have the cameras on you, you do have to bring it up. You really do. Um and yeah, it was quite different because heading into that intake, I thought there was going to be like 10 cameras all over the place, cameras in the rooms and everything. But no, it was just two guys with one camera. And yeah, it was pretty much just like a regular day. Um, yeah, it was really a unique experience.
I mean, two cameras, I guess, is still quite daunting for a lot of people who maybe haven't had it, but they also followed the outside life. And like you said, like there's making chanko and things like that. And there was one episode where obviously they were showcasing the life where you were all living together. How was that? Because I guess in one way it's similar to maybe a university experience or for Americans college, but I guess it's
Yeah,
completely different because you are with each other pretty much all the time. And this was during lockdown where like it was
yeah.
leading up to COVID and things. How was that for you?
There was a time where like we're living at the dojo, and then lockdown happened, and they said, "All right, you've got two choices: either moved into the house or staying at the dojo." So I moved to the house originally, and then a weekend I knew it wasn't right because I wanted to be with Fale-san and Tony-san. So then I moved into the dojo, and that's where you saw the meeting at the house when Tony-san was shouting at everyone. So yeah, that was really real. And then the police got involved at multiple times during the filming, which kind of ruined everything. Um, but yeah, that lockdown was just very very annoying, but yeah, we just had to do what we did.
But I guess it was hard because obviously everyone was going through those struggles with COVID and lockdown. And I know,
Yeah,
especially in New Zealand, Australia, it was very strict. And then I guess to have that, but along with the pressures of the New Japan Dojo, how was it like? What was the atmosphere like during that time, during the lockdown within the dojo? Because I can imagine that you are all so motivated, but there must have been something seeing what was going on in the world that sort of innately, I guess, had to impact you in some way.
yeah. So the lockdown first started in 2020, and then we did Lives Raw in 2021. But all the lockdowns, like, it really made me feel uncertain about my future because apparently I was supposed to go back to Japan in 2020, but lockdown happened. So I've had so much promises in the past, and with the lockdowns and COVID, it's really put everything back, put everything on the back burner. So yeah, COVID real makes me real uncertain about what's going to happen. But now COVID's pretty much over. Like with Tamashii up and running, like now I'm feeling a bit more positive about what's going to come.
Before we talk about that, because obviously that is such a huge thing, you mentioned earlier you were in Japan in 2019. You were part of the Young Lions Cup. What was
Yeah,
that like? I can imagine it being really surreal for you, like all that time training, watching New Japan, and then suddenly you're there, you're opening the shows. How was that?
yeah. Like honestly, like it wasn't my best experience. Like I kind of try and forget about it, but past experiences make you who you are, and I wouldn't be here where I am if it wasn't for that Young Lion Cup. But going into it, I nervous as anything because like I was the only guy representing the NZ Dojo, Fale Dojo. So like I didn't really have like anyone I could talk to or whatever. I had Aaron, um, and Fale-san was there as well, but no, I didn't have Andrew, I didn't have Jake. I was by myself. Um, but no, I'm thankful that I did get to compete in that cup. Um, but yeah, I just wasn't too impressed with how I formed. Yeah.
But I guess it's one of those things that it's not only a different change of environment, but it's the culture. How was that? Because obviously you've got the language barrier, there's obviously a lot of cultural differences. How was that being with the other young lions? Because obviously the class that you were with, it was a really famous there. Now either still on excursion or most of them are back in New Japan. What was it like interacting with the guys who are, I guess they were the same as you, but obviously in Japan rather than New Zealand?
Or like how were the other young lions?
Yeah, so like Umara, Suji, and that.
Yeah, oh, they were like brothers. They really were. Like Suji, like was Suji and Umra. Oh, them all. I don't want to like single anyone out, but they're all as a collective group. They're all good guys to me and Andrew when we were training with them. Really competitive because we always wanted to beat each other. But they always got the upper hand. But nah, they're all doing really well at the moment. Even guys like Alex and Clark and Carl and NXT now. They're all good guys, really competitive guys, and I feel that that whole class, that whole era, is going to do really amazing things in the future.
And
Really
obviously,
amazing
you're
things.
going to be part of that because your future is so bright. Now, obviously, the big thing that has happened the past year or so is New Japan Tamashi. Now, that I think for me was a phenomenal when the announcement came out, considering the routes and how many Australian and New Zealand wrestlers have gone to Japan, how important that
Mm.
was. What was your feelings when you heard that announcement? Because it was probably such a big thing to happen at that time, but especially for the New Zealand and Australia wrestling scene and for the wrestlers in New Japan from that place. What was your initial reaction to everything in the announcement?
With the announcement, I wasn't really too excited about it because, like, with me being close with Fale, I knew it was going to happen. Like, I knew it was going to happen back in like 2016
Oh, so
because
you're an
he's been.
insider. You knew you were like,
Oh,
no.
I always knew it was going to happen. I always knew. But actually, just to see like the announcement on Twitter and everything, like after hearing about it going to happen for years, like it was a pretty cool moment. Um, right now, it's starting off quite small, but people are starting to get more drawn into it, and it's only going to get bigger from here on out. Yeah.
And what was the reaction of the people around you? Because obviously, like you said, you knew about it. There was some inklings. What was it like on the general wrestling scene in New Zealand?
Well, New Zealand, we don't really get like much, much wrestling down here. I mean, like we get WWE. They always used to come like once a year, but because of COVID, they didn't has we haven't had anything since. But our last New Japan show was in 2016, so there was like a 6 year drought, and we finally did a show in Christchurch and the debut show of Tamashii in 2022. So that was a real cool moment. So we're gonna be hopefully running another New Zealand show very soon, but I think right now Australia is like the leading market because that's where the buzz is at the moment.
Now, obviously, you did that, and I think one of the matches, and I was really upset that it didn't happen, is you were meant to face Jeff Cobb, and obviously with issues
Mm,
and a circumstance that didn't happen.
yeah,
Well, I guess what was your thoughts going into the match? Because obviously Jeff Cobb is Jeff Cobb, and I guess how do you sort of react when changes? Because wrestling, it's inevitable, especially with traveling and circumstances. Things change. What was sort of
yeah,
how did you feel after that? Because I know that would have been a match that I know I would have loved to have seen.
yeah. Like with wrestling, nothing is ever guaranteed. Like nothing is ever guaranteed until the bell rings, is what a friend used to tell me. I was told that the match got changed when I was on the flight to Christchurch. So that kind of I was really disappointed that I didn't get to face Jeff, but I know that there will be a match down the line, and I hope he'll be ready and I'll be ready, and it'll all happen. But yeah, I faced Richard Mulu, similar size, similar style. So like how I prepared for Jeff is worked out perfectly because Rich is exactly the same, and we're wrestling maybe like 3 times a week, um, every week leading up to Tamashii. So it kind of worked out fine, to be honest.
I guess it's
Yeah.
one of those things about wrestling that you adapt, and I guess you make the most of what you got, because I guess a lot of the wrestling fans, although they would have loved to have seen that, I guess just to see you wrestle, just to watch a show like that would have been massive for them.
Yeah, and I don't think many people knew in the crowd, but that was my first match post Young Lion because I graduated from the black trunks to the New Zealand theme tights now. But no, that was an absolutely massive experience for me, and that's something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
And you literally touched upon that. I was going to say the whole graduation from black trunks into normal gear. What was it like for you? Because especially people who followed you, they will have known that it was far from easy. You went through so many hardships. You
Yeah.
kept fighting. What was it suddenly like when you realized, right, I am no longer a young lion. I can now be just Michael Richards.
It's good because like when you're a young lion, you can't show any emotion. You just have to be a fighting spirit, warrior spirit, and just aggressive. But now I can like let loose a bit. I can finally be in my own skin, and yeah, just like now I'm just thinking of different ideas of what I can do, what I can do next, what I can improve on. And Fale-san gave me the nickname Relentless Mike, and I think that's perfect for me. So I'm just working with that at the moment and just seeing where it takes me.
And speaking of Fale, because I've been watching, because thankfully New Japan World have streamed some of them, they've got it on New Japan World. And one of your matches was actually a tag match against Fale. Now, what was that like? Someone who is a mentor to you, who brought you to New Japan, and then facing him in the ring. It's almost like, and especially because not as a young lion, you are Michael Richard. What was that experience like? Because I can imagine
Yeah,
your role as mentor, suddenly now that's gone in the ring. Now you're not a young lion. You can be a proper wrestler and face Fale as he is, the rogue general.
yeah. No, that was pretty cool. That was something to tick off my bucket list. Like I always want to face like people close to me who've made an impact on my wrestling career. But no, it was good. I just didn't want to hurt Farley too much because I knew he would kill me at training the next day. But no, it was a real good moment and something I'll look back to for a long time.
And what was his reaction the next day after the match?
Oh, he was fine with me. He still told me I need a lot more work, but like we talked about before, like you never stop learning in wrestling. There's always more work to be done.
As you continue to go, how do you feel now that you, and we were chatting before this interview, you said that in the dojo you are still learning, but you're also a senpai to some of the younger guys. How do you find balancing those roles of the senior, but also I guess the junior still in some ways?
Yeah, like in terms of outside of the ring is where I play senior. So that's where I teach everyone like the etiquette, dojo etiquette and everything. I teach them what to say, what not to say, and just basically how you act outside of the wrestling ring. But I play like a junior when I'm actually in the ring wrestling because that's where I learn. That yeah, you have to learn in the ring. But outside of the ring is where I'm senior. In the ring, I'm still learning.
And I guess we've come now to 2023 and borders open, COVID is over. And I know
Yeah.
you want to go back to Japan. What is your future goal? What is the one thing you're like, you've ticked off wrestling Fale on your bucket list? What is next? What is the big thing that you want?
I'd honestly just I haven't really thought about it to be honest. Obviously like Japan right now is the number one goal for me to get back there. But in the meantime, right now I'm focusing on New Japan Tamashi and also my bodybuilding because right now, like I'm 16 weeks out, and I'm looking to create like a Kota Ibushi physique look, and I'm getting very very close. So the next time you see me on a Tamashii, I'm gonna blow people away.
You're gonna be like you're gonna be the reincarnate. You're gonna be Kota Ibushi. You're gonna be ripped. You're gonna be doing the pep pot like dripping it like Yo does.
Yep, you got that right.
And I always ask this no matter like who I chat to and no matter like where they are in their career. What is your dream match? I always love hearing this. Who is the one person that you want to face and where would be the dream location?
Mm. Um, ooh, I've oh fuck, it's hard. I would say Jay White, but I would say Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom. But he moved to AEW.
As everyone on this channel knows, this is a firm Jay White channel. So despite him moving to AEW,
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Jay White has he's played like a good role in my career. So it would kind of be it's always been a dream match of mine, myself as Jay. But I'd also want to say myself as Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Um, like I'm just thinking like long term goal. Like who knows if I'll be in New Japan for my whole career? I might end up elsewhere sometime down the line. Who knows? But that's one goal I'd like to do.
And I guess the fine thing is tell all my subscribers, tell them where they can find you and what they can look forward to seeing you in the future. Because I know while there are people who obviously know who you are, if there are maybe New Japan fans who haven't seen Tamashii or Lions Roar, or maybe even people who don't know New Japan at all, plug yourself, promote yourself, and use this as your platform.
All right, sweet. So on Instagram, you can find me at Michael Richards NZ. So on my Instagram, I'll be posting a lot of my bodybuilding journey and New Japan Tamashi. And on Twitter, you can find me at MR Richards NZ. And there you can see me post anything relevant with New Japan and bodybuilding as well.
And there's no doubt that Michael Richards' future is going to be so bright. So make sure you keep an eye on that. And as always, keep an eye on this channel. There is so much going on, so many events for New Japan. So I guess, as always, make sure to hit like, leave a comment, follow Michael on all his social media, follow me on social media at wrestling_chat, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.